Hi, this is Ellisande, and the video here is to try and walk you through my Feral Druid Weak Auras. This is my first attempt at making like a whole rotation set of Weak Auras for somebody else to use, so I hope this is useful to you. I want to start out with the talents. So these Weak Auras are specific to this talent setup. The important ones are Sabertooth, Soul of the Forest, Brutal Slash, and Blood Talons. The reason why you could also switch to Incarnation King of the Jungle here and it would be fine, but Savage Roar is going to need a different variation because this rotation is not set up to use Savage Roar. So those are the talents. Let's talk about the Weak Auras themselves. So if we pull up the Weak Auras, how to expand that, here we go. So we can see them all right now on the page. The way this is set up is whatever the leftmost button is that's up is always the one that you want to press. So this is your rotation right here. Tiger's Fury, Berserk, Ferocious Bite, Rip, Rake, Brutal Slash, and then finally Shred. So that's basically how it works. You'll want to go from left to right. Sometimes you'll see that Ferocious Bite or Rip will be up, but the icons will be grayed out. We'll see that here in a minute. What that means is that that's the button you should press next, but you don't have enough energy to press it yet. So with Rip, that means 25 energy, which is the minimum you need to be able to use Rip. For Ferocious Bite, you want to pool up to 50 energy before you use it. So if you're at less than 50 energy, Ferocious Bite will also be grayed out. The little glows around Rip and Rake here. If you either have a Blood Talons proc or Tiger's Fury up, which empowers those two abilities, Rip or Rake, they will glow, showing you that now is a really opportune time to press it. All right, let's talk about the bars below hand. So here we have 3 progress bars that decay. This is the time remaining on your Rake, your Rip, and your Thrash. Now the way that the bars are set up, they will be this kind of dark red color when you should not be refreshing your dots when they're just ticking down and you want to see the time remaining, and then they'll turn a bright red where they're once you're within the time frame where if you were to refresh your dot you will not lose any damage. The rotation buttons up here will also correspond to that, so when you should be using Rake, for instance, the Rake button will be up. You don't have to worry about paying attention to these bars. They're more just for your own information. And then once you get to the point where you really should refresh this thing, those bars will start flashing. Just remind you that, hey, maybe it's time to press the Rake button or the Rip button, whatever that is. Okay. Now, the craziest part of all of this. There's a bar here that says 3 different generators. So this has to do with the Blood Talons talent here. So it says when you use 3 different combo point generating abilities within 4 seconds, the damage of your next 2 Rips or Ferocious Bites are increased by 30%. Now, Rip and Ferocious Bite are your 2 most damaging abilities that you use in Feral Spec. So Blood Talons is huge, but it's tricky because you need to use 3 different being the operative word here, combo generating abilities within 4 seconds, so very quickly. So this final bar that we see on top that says 3 diff generators, what this means is you need to use Rake, Brutal Slash, or Thrash, and Shred all within 4 seconds. Well, how can you guarantee that you'll be able to do that? The bar that you see here is a yellow bar. If you don't have enough energy to be able to use all 3 of those in a row, this bar will be gray. And if you do, it'll be yellow like you see it right now. If you have a Blood Talons proc, so you don't need to be worrying about pressing these 3, it just won't show up at all at that point. So only when you need to create a Blood Talon proc will this bar show up. And if the bar is gray, that means you need to wait to get more energy so that you'll be able to use the 3 abilities. Okay, so let's walk through, and I'll talk through this here a little bit. For the beginning, I'm just going to blow both of my cooldowns, and so that we're only dealing with the core rotation, and then we'll see those pop up as we go along. So I'm just going to Berserk and Tiger's Fury just to make sure that those aren't going to pop up on our rotation. So when we click on an enemy, the first thing we're going to see is the first button I should press is Rake, and it's glowing because we have Tiger's Fury up, which increases the damage of Rake. Now the next button is Brutal Slash, so I'll Brutal Slash a couple times here. And now you see the 3 diff generators. Bar is here, and it's full. So if I do the 3 different generators, now the bar goes away, and now we have this empowered rip because we have a Blood Talons proc. So we press rip, which I missed because my gear is not very good. And now we're back to rotation. So Rake, Brutal Slash a couple of times. Now the reason that Brutal Slash is becoming great out here, I still have a charge of it, but it's gray because if I need to do the 3 different generators, I want to save 1 Brutal Slash. So that's why it doesn't automatically gray itself out. So when you know you're not going to need a Brutal Slash or a Blood Talons proc coming up, you can use that last charge, Brutal Slash. Otherwise, you may want to save it. So there goes our Ferocious Bite. So now 3 different generators is coming back up again. So now I can Rake, Brutal Slash, Shred. Now that bar is gone and I've got Ferocious Bite again. And that's really the rotation. My damage in this video is going to be garbage because I leveled this character to 50 only to get Blood Talons talent so that I could test out this suite of weak auras. So that's kind of what it's doing. Now another thing to mention is that many times when you're playing, you will accidentally proc the Blood Talons just because you need to use 3 generators in a row, and those are just the buttons that you need to press. So that yellow bar won't always be incredibly necessary, but just be paying attention to it when it comes up. I can definitely make it glow or something too, if it's not noticeable enough. So we'll just have to kind of play that by ear. And that's basically it. So now this is gray. We're going to wait for it to turn color before we use it to make sure we get the full amount out of it. Now we have 3 diff generators. I needed to refresh my rake anyway, so that's actually just nothing special. Wait for it to turn the color. Hit it. We have 3 diff generators, so we're going to use those real fast. There we go, we got our Blood Talon proc. Ferocious Bite. Wait for Ferocious Bite again. Now we've got 3 diff generators, so we want to wait until we have enough energy. There we go. And that's basically it. You're just going to press whatever button happens to be there at the time, like Ferocious Bite, whatever's furthest to the left, and just let the aura take care of it. Now, the trickiest part to this, there's one other part I want to talk about here. If you're seeing 3 diff generators, but you don't have any Brutal Slash, you can actually still cause this to go off, because Thrash is a combo generating ability that is different than the other 2. So if you're in a pinch and you really need to do this, you can Rake, Shred, and then Thrash. And that also will generate proc Blood Talons for you. The weak aura doesn't show Thrash if you have no Brutal Slashes up, but I can work on making it do that. I just didn't have time to kind of get behind it. So that's the intro to these weak auras and kind of how they work. Hopefully that helps. If you have thoughts or feedback, please let me know, and I will try to incorporate those into the weak auras. Feral is a very interesting spec, and I'm still working on trying to figure out some optimality here of, you know, for instance, having it have you reapply your rip when you have both a Blood Talons proc and a Tiger's Fury, because that will give you a better snapshot. And then your Ferocious Bite will keep that strong snapshot running on the enemy. So there are definitely some optimizations here, but this should give you like the core rotation. It should help you manage your bleeds. So I hope this helped. Let me know what your feedback is. And yeah, thanks for being my guinea pig for this. All right, bye.